This is Wild Yarns with Samara and Sheri.
Hi guys, and you're back on Wild Yarns. It's Samara and Sheri here, and today we have Krissy in studio with us, which is such a treat. Now, I met Krissy backstage at a runway show, and she does some pretty cool things. She has her own agency, and she also does her own runway shows. Now, the cool thing about all of that is her agency and her brand is 100% inclusive. So, happy to have you here. Excited to see you again, girl. Yeah. And today we wanted to talk about industry a little bit and maybe lift the veil on what happens behind the scenes on what, runway, as well as some of your favorite commercial brand shoots, what happens behind the scenes there. And also a little bit on, I guess, the change, a lot of, I'm 36. I lived through the Greyhound era of modelling, the old school Victoria's Secret shows and stuff.
America's Next Top Model, the low-rise jeans, the abs, the body shaming in all the magazines where they would take the photos of celebrities at the beach and then compare them to whales. I still remember when they took that photo of Jessica Simpson performing and they were like, she's let herself go, she's so big. And now when I look back at that photo, I'm like, she's just a normal weight, she's my weight. Yeah. 100%. But back then, I remember being like, oh, wow, she's gotten big.
And that was just okay.
Yeah, and it was just it was ingrained that everyone was like, yeah, she's so big, especially because she was doing the Daisy Dukes before that. And then all of a sudden she got just probably to what's considered to be a healthy weight.
And she was still shredded.
She got torn apart.
Oh, and even remember when Britney Spears did that performance where she was wearing she showed her belly, and it was when she'd it was a bit of a
she was postpartum too. Yeah. She had just had a baby.
And she got shredded. Absolutely shredded. Yeah.
And you look at that now and you're like, what? How?
Well, I think there's a lot more accountability now, right? And I was actually thinking a little bit on the drive here today, actually. I think, and I'm going to say maybe our Gen Z audience is responsible for this. I think with businesses, authenticity is now the new authority, right? Mm-hmm. And because people want authentic images, I think if, back in the day, heavily edited images was just really normal. Whereas, and models had this, box they had to fit into. Whereas now, if people see things that are too edited, they don't trust. No. I think the trust is sort of broken there. And I would say Gen Z are the ones really campaigning it because us beat up old millennials are we just accepted it. We're like, oh, that's fine. Yeah. That's normal. When I first met you, you were modeling.
Yeah. I just kind of fell into the industry, to be honest. And I never really thought that I was going to end up there. And it was sort of at a time where curve models was a really new thing. It was only just sort of coming about. So, I fell into the industry and started doing runway, and that's how I met you, and I loved it. And I was like, everyone needs to experience this. It's amazing. So through a couple of my own experiences, which I had, backstage at shows which weren't great, I sort of thought there's got to be a better way to do this. So started up a show with another model at the time, and at the time it was quite new, but we just put a call out to everyone and we're like, whatever you look like, whoever you are, come to the casting. And from there we cast over 35 super diverse models, put the show together in a warehouse, literally a newsstand. It was crazy, it was chaotic, but the feedback was insanely positive, and we sort of thought we have to do something with this. So that's when we started the agency. And I have it now on my own, but it's been going for about 4 years. And now we have about 35 models in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria. So super diverse range of models, all different ages, all different appearances, all different abilities. And we're just pushing that narrative in the industry, really.
Which is honestly amazing, and that change needed to happen.
Yeah.
So you fell into modelling. You didn't ever aspire to be a model or anything. I guess the rhetoric out there was even Curve, like early Curve wasn't really Curve. I don't think it was.
No, I think that's like what's considered now to be like a straight size.
Yeah.
Because like me and Samara have both been makeup artists, and I worked in editorial, and the sort of the way if you were slightly big, you were suddenly plus size. And I remember seeing this model one day, and to me, I was like, oh my God, her body is amazing. And she's like, oh yeah, my agent has told me that I'm now only going to be doing plus size. And I was looking at her and I'm like, she would be lucky to be a size 8 at her biggest, a size 8 Australian.
Insane.
Yeah.
And she was now considered plus size.
Yeah.
And this was like many years ago when I was like doing this, and I just remember thinking, how is she considered that when she's so skinny?
And I guess that's the part and the parcel. The industry's evolving. It's changing. And it's really exciting time that, you know, I think even diversity in terms of age, like older models are out there, you know. It was so limiting back in the day that you only had this small little window and this small little box that you could fit into. What do you guys think around, or what do you think's caused this evolution in the industry?
I think social media has a huge part to play in it. But I've found that there is a disconnect between what's happening on Instagram and TikTok and what's actually being put out there in e-commerce and print. I've noticed like brands are happy to work with influencers and, you know, Instagram models and that sort of thing on collaborations and, you know, will post their pictures. But when you go onto their website, those models aren't represented there. And it's really interesting to see that happening. And I'm like, all this work is happening here online, but it's not being portrayed into the real world. And like, why? Why are we not seeing it in print? Why are we not seeing it on runways? Or if we are, it's very, very watered down and it's very, you know, palatable, I suppose. So I think that's interesting from my perspective, is like, why is it not, you know, translating across those fields? And I mean, we're definitely seeing it more in runway now, mostly in smaller shows, but like with the bigger sort of shows, it's still like all the models are a size 4 to 6.
Yeah.
You're not seeing curve models on those runways. So it's like, I just want to know what's happening, and it's interesting to sort of see it from that perspective, I suppose.
And when you do see like a curve model, it's generally because they're quite a well-known.
Correct.
You don't see just a curve model that doesn't have that social media presence or isn't somewhat famous. It's always the ones that are like, there's a few handful and they are just the ones that go through all of those shows.
Yeah.
And it's more because of their name than necessarily that the brand wanted to have curve models.
Correct.
Or inclusivity. And I think it's quite interesting. So social media is holding everyone more accountable because people will call you out. If you're like, and I think another thing we're noticing with brands, that if brands are just putting up a rainbow flag for pride, but nothing else in their brand stands for that, everyone's like, what the fuck? Why are you trying to jump on this bandwagon to push forward what you think we want to see? So there is that accountability piece, but it is still not filtering all the way through because, and it's almost like the left hand's not talking to the right hand. Maybe their social media team is doing all this amazing stuff with creators, but then, you know, they might have somebody doing the e-commerce shoots that is still booking models that aren't consistent with that brand. I think it's going to continue to get better though, because there is just nowhere else to go, you know, in terms of where the industry, like in terms of what people want to see from brands. And I remember Sheri and I worked in beauty when I first, and it's interesting just to see the change in editing of photos and like the accountability around brands. If someone notices, and also influencers, if someone notices a face tune or something like that, people are calling people out. And I remember, I started in industry, those high edited glossy images everywhere. It was just what was, and very normal for a photographer to slim down someone, do whatever they wanted to do. And now there is such a change. And I remember a brief came across my table for, I can say it because I'm going to say nice things about it, Bras and Things. Bras and Things brief came across my table, and they were for influencing work, and they specifically had in their brief, we've picked you because we love you. Do not edit your images. We want to see all of you. We don't want you to feel ashamed about stretch marks, shaving rash, anything like that. I mean, shoot them in a nice lighting, but, you know, don't feel the need to overly edit your images, because that's not what we want, which I think is so cool, because that is a brand that traditionally would have felt the pressure maybe to edit their images right down.
Yeah. Totally. Is that going to continue, though, from that campaign? I feel like I see that a lot. Like a brand will be like, okay, all of a sudden we're going to be super diverse, and we're going to do this incredible diverse campaign, and we're going to push it, and it's going to be really successful. And then they just go back to doing what they've always been doing. So it's like, yes, we need to make that move forward, but then we need to continue it, and it needs to be genuine, and it needs to be authentic, because when we see them scale back on that, people will call them out, especially online, you know, and it's like, if you're not doing this authentically and it's not the values of your brand, people are going to know, you know what I mean?
And I think I have such an ick. This is an ick of mine, that is people saying brands are brave for just using inclusive models. I'm just like, you're not brave. Like, just use the people. Like, we're all humans here. We want to see different people. Like, just use the people. Like, there's no bravery here.
Yeah, but there's like a lot of brands too, and I think especially in the fashion industry, Cotton On has been called out for this quite a lot, is that they are now doing like bigger sizes, but they're not stocking them in their actual store. And personally, I need to try clothes on.
100%.
When it's only online, how do you know if it's flattering? How do you know if it fits you well? And the fact that they are really pushing that narrative of body positivity, we're including people, but just not in the store.
It's sort of like, we want your money, but we don't want to see you, and we don't want to represent you.
And their stores are big. Like, they have got space to put the larger sizes
100%.
in. I heard an interview with like the CEO of Cotton On, and he was like, oh, yeah, but we just don't get the sales that we get from the smaller sizes. But maybe you would if you actually had the sizes in store.
I think, and it's interesting, we were having a conversation about this earlier, like every brand touch point, and we've gone rogue here, everyone, but it's so important. Every brand touch point has to be consistent, because with these brands, they can't just have one little campaign that they're like inclusive, and then it's nowhere else on their brand, or, you know, someone has an in-store experience. And I think brands like Kukai have been caught out for this, because I don't even think they've really repaired their reputation. And
I don't think they want
to. They don't care. They cater to who they cater to.
Like the fact that only a certain size can wear their clothes, because it will mean that there will always be a certain Kukai aesthetic.
I don't know. And does anyone even shop there anymore? Like, I think it's
changed. They've got some quality clothes. Like, their clothes are nice, but like, what's their largest size? I think a small 12 at that.
12. It wouldn't be any more than that, surely.
From what I've seen over their social media, they have no intent on changing that. Like, 'cause they just don't want to market to that. And the same with like Lorna Jane. She has been called out multiple times for like, you know, not being plus size friendly and not being inclusive, and like having a toxic work environment. But those sort of brands, I don't think they necessarily want to change. I think they want to just kind of like wait until this sort of body positivity trend is over.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think you're going to have to get on the bus, because that's what our younger audience is all about. This is just because I'm interested in this. How do you maintain like body positivity in an industry that's like emphasizes certain body standards?
Yeah.
And especially like, you're a leader of a team of people. Like, how do you, because I imagine like, and I've seen you guys have had, and you've been really humble with how you've introduced yourself, because you guys have had some fucking wins. Like, you guys have been at like Fashion Week.
We got our billboard this week too.
Yeah, I saw that. Was it a Bonds one?
It was a Bonds one, and it's everywhere.
Yes.
So Gracie in Melbourne, like, fucking props to her. But just like, it's those moments are surreal, because it's like, okay, they're like recognizing us, and Bonds, hands down, are amazing with their campaigns. We worked with them multiple times. So lovely to work with, so actually authentic and genuine and inclusive. So for her to get that and to be on a billboard for Bonds, I feel really proud of that, because it's like they're the people that we want to align with, you know. And I think, going back to what you were saying, you just have to choose who you want to work with. And
Yes.
that may mean limiting opportunities. But if clients aren't going to resonate with me or with my models, like we just don't work with them. And even if they are like massive clients, it always comes down to the model's choice. And if they feel like, it doesn't align with them, then we just don't go forward with it. So
amazing.
Yeah, it is super hard to navigate. And I think it's super hard to navigate, managing the models through that as well. It's like, why am I not getting booked for this? Or why are they using this person? And it's like, maybe they're not the right fit for you.
Yes.
Not you're not the right fit for them, but maybe they're not the right fit for you. And if they're not working with you, then there's other opportunities for you elsewhere. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it is very hard to balance that emotional sort of side, because I've been on the other side too. I've been on the model side.
Utterly
brutal. You've got to have really thick skin. It fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I getting cut from this, or why am I not picked for this? And like it is, I mean, it is all about appearance, but it's like you have to sort of look deeper than that. And it's like, okay, what skills can I bring? What sort of, attitude can I bring? Do I share the values of the brand? There's all these other different layers.
Yes.
And it is just like a daily sort of navigation of that. It is really hard.
Yeah, well, rejection kind of would be quite hard compared to another job, because it is about how you look.
Yeah.
So personal. You can't just be like, I didn't do a good, like it's,
well, if you didn't get another job that you say you worked in IT, it wouldn't be, I feel like, as cutting, because it's just, I wasn't the right fit for this group or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But when it is generally like based on how you look, it just adds a whole nother layer. And there's such like this sort of stigma around modeling, and that it's easy. And it's honestly, as someone that's worked as a makeup artist, and I worked in London, I worked on so many high fashion like sets and stuff. The models were treated terribly unless they were a big name. Like they were honestly treated like they were just another prop instead of an actual person. And the pressure on them, because I did a lot of high fashion, all these girls were very skinny. And I remember there was one day, it was a 16-hour day, and the model that they had, all I saw her eat the whole day was a black coffee, and she had like an apple.
Oh my God.
And there was such a pressure for her to like be so skinny, and they had food, they brought food in, and she just was like, didn't touch it. And I was like, oh, do you want to get lunch? And she was like, oh no, I've got an apple, that's fine. And I was thinking, like, by the end of the day, we've been here for 16 hours. I'm so tired. I've eaten, I've sat down. She's been nonstop going the whole time. And then I remember the photographer at the end being like, she was a bit bloated.
Oh my God.
Gross.
And it's just crazy. Like the stories I've heard from like models over there, especially when like they're doing all the fashion weeks and stuff. One girl told me she was living in a model's house, and her housemate would purposely leave cans of tuna in the sun so they would go bad. She would eat it to then make herself sick. So she would vomit and then...
Like the gastro shred?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
And she would be doing this up for Fashion Week just so she could maintain that like super skinny aesthetic. Shooketh. And she was telling me another girl would eat cotton buds because it would fill her tummy.
Yeah.
That's not even food. Like that is such a crazy extreme
so dangerous
pressure.
Yeah.
Flip side, where people are like, oh, they're so beautiful, they're so healthy, they're so skinny. And then you see someone that is plus size and it's like that shame that gets put on them. Oh, you're not healthy, you're not skinny. And every time I see people that comment that, I'm like, if you knew what those super skinny models were doing to stay super skinny, you would not be saying that they were healthy.
No.
And it just gets like completely flipped back on, any sort of plus size model. No, you're not healthy. You must not love yourself, all of that.
Unrealistic body standard. And I think I do love the representation of people, even like in the fitness industry, a little bit different to what we play in, but they'll show posed and unposed because that's just not how bodies look all the time. And I love that there is that bit of accountability piece there. Mind you, dumb shit still happens. Before I left industry, I did a runway show for a fitness company. All the models were fitness models, right? They were like a lot of them had done some bodybuilding and stuff. And it was at a bar. This is a bit of a fun story, but it was at a bar, and these bitches were like, "Hey, I heard if you do a shot of vodka, it sucks in all the fat." And they jumped behind the bar because we just had it booked for the event for this thing. And they jumped behind the bar, grabbed a bottle of vodka. All of them did a shot of vodka because they're like, it is going to make us look shredded. They were all fuck-eyed because they're like, they'd eaten no food. They've done this shot of vodka. And I'm just like, this is absolute chaos. They were drunk. One of them had their eyes shut. And then the bar we booked after it. So we went and did it. I don't know if I knew because I was like doing freaking makeup on them and they stank because they just smelled like booze. And the bar ended up thinking about suing them wanting to go them because they're like, you stole from us. You jumped behind the bar and stole from us. And I was like, oh God, these girls. But again, people doing crazy shit because of crazy beauty standards. Like worked on another show that is still out there. And the girls all talking to each other. These girls weren't models. They had worked in reality TV and they were getting ready for a photo shoot. One of them was like, hey, girls, we got this photo shoot tomorrow. I've got some laxatives. Do you want to hit the laxatives? And everyone was like, yeah. Rock up. I don't know if you guys have ever taken laxatives or if you've ever had the shits before, but you get cramps. Like, it's not a pleasant, experience. And everyone was so sick and also bloated because their guts are getting thrown around from laxatives. And they're like, again, the pressure to look a certain way making people do crazy shit. So what advice would you give aspiring models starting out, or if someone wants to get into it, what advice in terms of a journey or anything you could give someone looking to get into industry?
Yeah, I think regardless of what you look like, I think it's really important to understand your own personal brand and where you want to see yourself, knowing what kind of brands you want to work with, knowing what you want to achieve, what you want to do, having your own sort of sense of style. If that comes naturally to you or that's something that you can develop on, I think brands really sort of, like that kind of thing because they can see their clothing on you or they can see, their clients being you, and if they can portray that through their imagery and their campaigns, then that's a win. That's how you'll start picking up work and finding people that are going to support you and making connections and that sort of thing. I think that is super, super important.
So it's again a little bit of the old school, and correct me if I'm wrong, building your own social platform, finding out who you are, and then connecting with other people to shoot imagery and do that sort of stuff is the sort of norm still.
I think moving forward that is definitely the way to go. People do look at your socials, unfortunately. And when I first started the agency, I was saying a completely different thing. I was like, oh, you don't have to work on your followers, you don't have to do that
really,
because
right.
We'll be doing your images and pushing them out to brands and that sort of thing. But as it's grown and grown, and we sunk into COVID and everyone was online, so that's where everyone was looking and doing things. And if you didn't have a platform, then you were sort of no one, or you were unknown. So it's like that is important now. We have TikTok, we have all these things. Like there's so many platforms that you can be across where you can promote yourself, and so I think it's important to use that to your advantage 100%.
And I think probably the double-edged sword there is, you're out there representing yourself. You might not know what to charge. And I guess that's the beauty of if you can find yourself an agency like yours, that someone's in there batting for you and handling the business side, because businesses will take the piss, 100%. Totally. And I don't have a huge following, but I still get a handful of messages a week brands asking me to promote them for free, pretty much, which is fine. I get it. Some influencers start out doing that, and that's okay if you're building your platform and learning, how to, you're doing it to learn new things. But I think it happens to models as well. It's almost that TFP. And what is it? Time for print? Is that what it stands
Yeah.
for? And for those of you that aren't in industry, in essence, TFP has a place, and I think the place is it's when you give your time for imagery. Now, if everybody, I think with TFP, if everybody is there and nobody is getting paid and everyone's just having a creative day or whatever and a little passion project to get some images, I think TFP is great in that respect. Maybe if you're learning, I know I did a lot of it when I was a makeup artist learning out because I wasn't, I hadn't done all the years of experience that I have by the time I left industry. But I do think a lot of brands, and I don't know, I've been out of industry for a couple of years now, sometimes say, oh, it's TFP, but really it's a paid campaign. It should be a campaign. Is that still happening or is you're joking?
I get those in my emails all the time. It's like, we're looking for this model, or, and the photographer's being paid. The brand is obviously getting money because they're going to get sales from the images. But they're like, we'll have the model for free and maybe we'll give her a piece of clothing or a dress or whatever, or him or her. It's like ridiculous. Why are they so undervalued in that sense? It's like, you're paying for great images. You want like a high quality, professional model, but you're not willing to pay them, and it doesn't make sense. Or they'll be really stingy. They're like, oh, this is our budget, but the budget for the photographer might be 10 times that, or it's crazy. So I think it is 100% still happening, 100%.
And my sort of rule was, if I had worked on something TFP, let's call it, and I saw it on someone's website, I was like, no, I'm going to have to send you an invoice because that's being used for marketing. For someone starting out, what would your advice be, in terms of filtering through the free stuff or filtering through the weeds of getting started?
Yeah. Do your research. Make sure that what you're getting out of it is going to benefit you and is of value to you. If it is a collaboration with a brand, make sure that it's something that you would actually wear, that you would actually promote, that is good quality, that, is ethical if possible. Think of all the factors, because the moment you start putting yourself out there and, choosing what you promote and you're choosing what you're doing, people are going to view that, So I think just being really careful about those things. And if it is a photographer, make sure, they're reputable. If you've seen other people work with them, ask them what that photographer's like, make sure the images are what you want to portray. Again, how you want to portray yourself, because if you're not getting out of it, if all you're getting is you're turning up and you're getting the experience of shooting and you don't actually get really anything from it, it's absolutely not worth your time. And it's better to say no to an opportunity than rather say yes to everything and it just sort of be like 50-50,
Yeah. And I think also too, like finding out a time frame for when you get the images, because so much, like when I was a makeup artist, I would not see images for forever because for some reason the photographer was like, I just don't like them. I'm not going to put them out there. And I'm like, well...
what about me?
I'm like, well, you don't have to put them up on your portfolio, but I would still like them because I put my time in for free. And I'm a big thing, like, because I obviously do social media as well. I think about when people approach me and they want to give me something for free, I go, would I actually spend my money on this?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then I say no.
Yep.
Because I'm just like, it's just not worth it.
Yep.
And when you promote too much stuff, then it's like you're not genuine and authentic.
Totally. People see right through that. And this is my future lawyer coming out in me. But like, get everything in writing. Even if it's just a little contract that you do up yourself, it's like, okay, here's how many images I'm going to get.
Yes.
That you're going to promise that you're going to have them to me in, I don't know, what's a realistic time frame? 2 to 3 weeks, like for a photographer who's busy. And, here's the agreement. I sign it, you sign it. Done, and then if it doesn't happen, it's like, hey, we've had this agreement, you've got that to fall back on. A contract is a contract is a contract, right?
Yes.
Just get it in writing. And I think that comes down to everything, even collabs with brands, just put something together. It doesn't have to be, worded fancy. It's just like, gives yourself that sort of safety guard.
Yeah. And it's a bit more, I found, and again, similar but different with makeup, it's easier to refer back to a contract and say, hey, remember we agreed to this, rather than having a bit of a scrap, and destroying a working relationship or just having it turn awful. I think the other thing people need to look out for is how long they're letting the brand use images. And I've noticed lots of brands, and I'm on a few platforms that I'm only coming at from probably an influencer perspective, that want like unlimited use of your images. And I'm like, I would never go for a brand to use my images unlimited just because I'm like, I don't know if I want to be marketing, I don't know, tomato sauce in my bloody 40s, but they're still using your images. What do you reckon is normal in terms of, or you just charge for it, I guess, however long it is?
Yeah, 12 months. And then anything after that should be, you know, an additional charge, and it should be upon review, you know what I mean? The model should have the choice to be like, I actually don't, you know, they might have completely changed how they look, and that's fine, but they're like, I don't align with that anymore, or I don't want to be seen in that way anymore, and I don't want you to use them anymore. And so that should definitely be part of it as well, like them being able to say, no, here's the 12 months review. If you want to continue using them, here's the fee.
Yes. Love
and also
it.
too, like a lot of things can change in that time. Like maybe the brand doesn't align with you anymore. Who knows, they could have had a scandal.
Well, they've been cancelled.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't really want my image
For sure.
associated with that. You know, there's a lot of things can happen, or you might have really hit the jackpot and become really well known, and now your usage fee is going to be even higher.
Yeah. What's happening, you know, print media, you know, in the photo shoots, do you think it is impacting society, or is it more it's almost like is the tail that wags the dog? Do you think it's more the pressure of society back onto the brands?
I honestly think it is the pressure onto the brands from what I have seen. In a positive way, that is sort of good, because it does then, you know, translate onto the consumers. It's like, okay, like I see myself in these images and I'm going to buy from this brand now, you know. So it's sort of like a working circle, I suppose. And they do sort of play off one another. But I definitely think there is pressure on brands, like you were saying before, to up their game and actually, you know, be authentic and represent people authentically, because people won't buy from them. They just won't. If they don't feel represented, they're not going to buy from that brand.
Yeah, 100%.
I think especially too because a lot of brands these days do massive sales online. And I know personally, if I don't see a model that looks similar to my body type wearing an item of clothing on their website, it will stop me from buying it, because I want to see how it fits someone that's like, you know, got bigger hips than necessarily someone that's like quite skinny. And I feel like that really impacts it with the online shopping, because you can't try it on before you buy it. And that makes a really big difference too.
Yeah. And there's some brands that do like an epic job at that. For example, Age Athletica, who I purchase from all the time, they have a decent size range. They're not completely inclusive, but they're okay.
Yeah.
But on their website, they will have images for a size 8, a size 12, and a size 18, I think. And you can scroll through and see. I'm like, okay.
And they're Aussie too. Woo!
Correct. And I'm like, okay, I kind of like, you know, that kind of looks like me. All right, that looks a bit different. Like, you can see yourself. And that makes me want to, I bought from them multiple times and their shit is good. It's like, you know, why wouldn't you do that? It's so easy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think like a really good case study too about when brands don't adjust to how the society is changing is Victoria's Secret. They were massive. Everyone loved Victoria's Secret. They did a like televised runway show, which was like unheard of. What other fashion brand did that? And when the body positivity, when people started to change their views on it, they refused. Their sales, everything's dropped because people stopped shopping there because they didn't feel like they were represented, that they felt like unless you looked like a Victoria's Secret model, you could not shop there. And before, I think it was very like they were aspirational. Hopefully, if you bought their stuff, you would look like their angels. But then that sort of shift happened where it was like, wait, no, I shouldn't have to change to look like that to be able to get their stuff. Like I should want to like see me in that brand. They nearly went bankrupt, I'm pretty sure, because people just stopped. Like the show got cancelled because the owner, who was quite misogynist, read some articles that he said, but he just flat out refused to change that to have anyone bigger. And now they've had to, but everyone's kind of like too little too late.
Yeah, and it was also so disingenuous. Like they tried to come back and be like, okay, all of a sudden we're diverse. Like it's not their values, it's not their brand. And it's so funny that a brand that women solely purchase from is owned by a man. It's like, hello, what are we adhering to here? It's so fucking weird. It's like, you know, and it was just a a train wreck.
Yeah.
They tried to come back and do the show and have it be authentic and diverse, and it just wasn't.
So it's not happening now, the show. I don't think
No,
I've seen
the
it. I
show's
can't
been
even
cancelled
think.
for years. And I used to love it.
It's off my
I used to
radar.
love it because I love a sparkle, and I used to look at the lingerie and be like, oh my God, it's so pretty.
And even
like,
the hair. Victoria's
the wings,
Secret hair
yeah.
was so trendy for so long.
And I just love like the creativity of it. For research for this, I was looking in and I found one article from 2014 about Victoria's Secret, and they released their Perfect Body campaign.
No.
And
What is the perfect body?
10 super skinny girls, and it literally was their Perfect Body campaign. And now, if that was released, oh my
I wouldn't
God.
dare. Sure.
Yeah.
No.
But 2014, they had their Perfect Body campaign, and every girl was like a size 4, size 6 at the biggest, and that was like
That was just okay.
Yeah.
And we were just, back then,
No.
I feel like, because social media, again, like what you said, Krissy, like it's social media that's holding these businesses accountable, because back then, I feel like marketing just spoke at you. It wasn't that 360s coming back where you can talk back to the marketing.
Yes.
So, you picked up a magazine, whatever was in that magazine, print media had us by the balls, really. Whereas now, that just wouldn't fly. Like, you could see the perfect body in a magazine and be like, oh, weird, that's not me, but okay. Whereas now, people online would be like, what the fuck?
an article came up, and I think this was from like 2013, and it was Adriana Lima's diet and her routine that she did before the show and how she got her body ready. And it was
Spill
so
the
crazy.
tea.
I'll read it out to you exactly what she said about her prep for the show. But now I look at that and I'm like, if someone said that now, everyone would have gone wild. But this was obviously the norm because no one made a fuss about it.
Yeah.
Like, that seems legit.
I'll pull it up now.
Yeah. Anyway, Sheri, hit us. What was her diet?
So this was what she said to a magazine back in the day. Every day she drinks a gallon of water along with a clean diet of steamed veggies and lean protein. 9 days before the show, she is on a no solids diet. She will only drink protein shakes that include powder egg. 2 days before the show, she will normally ditch the gallon of water
What for?
for nothing.
Oh, she's on the vodka. Like, that's where those bitches got the vodka from. Nothing. So what, she's just a prune out there dry.
12 hours before the show, she'll completely stop drinking entirely.
What?
She does all of this while doing 2 daily workouts a day with her personal trainer.
Wow. And it's just like, if you have to do that to go to work, that's pretty full on. Like, just forego the
And
water.
she's not the only one. When I was looking through it, like they all had, when they had done different articles, all the different angels at that time, all had something extremely similar. And the fact that you can't even drink water before the show, which is 0 calories,
Or even
because
like,
they want it to be as like dehydrated, which makes you look shredded, which is what the bodybuilders do before they do a show.
Yeah, that's right.
But the fact that this was like something she would say in an article just shows you like the culture of the industry and what you actually have to do to be that size and how it's just not healthy.
I feel like that would not fly now.
Also too, America's Next Top Model. Back in the day, the stuff that Tyra Banks and Janice Dickinson would say.
Insane.
Oh, so problematic. Even like the blatant just blackfishing.
yeah,
Like,
and the
Yeah.
photo shoots. Like,
yeah. Or the
insane.
like just shaving off the girl's hair and stuff like that, which back then I was like, wow, so edgy. But to really like attack someone, like, not attack, that's probably not the right word, but the way they did it, that takes away potentially someone's personality. And again, just be yourself, be authentic.
Yeah.
Well, in season 1, they had a model that was called Robin, and she was their only plus-size model. And honestly, she just had bigger hips than everyone else. One of the judges, Janice Dickinson, who is well known for fat-shaming everyone, said, "In my humble opinion, I don't think America's Next Top Model will be a plus-size model. I'm sorry, but you're just fat. She should be just working at Avis."
What?
which is just like
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
but like,
Hey! Yeah.
but and
Fucking
then
Janice Dickens coming for people, coming for Avis.
straight to the throat.
yeah, and it goes on. And fat, she's huge. She's never going to be a top model looking like that. Throughout the whole season, they just literally, her and Tyra Banks just really picked her apart, pulled her down, and they went to Paris, and all she got told in Paris was she'll never be a fashion model, which, you know, commercial models do make more money than fashion models. But all they did was like pull her apart, constantly tell her that she was too big. And it's like, why even bother having a plus size model on your show if you're going to say you're never going to win because you're a plus size model? What's the point? And the judges even said they were disappointed and sad that Robyn hasn't used this opportunity to represent women of a certain size. It's clear that Robyn doesn't have any personality to be a top model. Janice claimed, despite being the one that tore Robyn's confidence down every single episode.
I hope Robyn, it really turned around for Robyn.
Yeah, they even got upset at her for not wanting to do one of the shoots, which was implied nudity. And they really put a lot of pressure on her to do it. And she just was like, no, I'm not comfortable. And then she got, once again, shamed for that. And it's like, she could never win. But it's like, this is what we grew up with. And at that time, I was like, I did not see anything wrong with it.
It's very normalised.
Yeah.
Even implied nudity, I just think some people love it. It's not for everyone. If you've got a personal boundary there, don't do it. Like, don't do it. I was on a photo shoot. The guy's not around anymore. Actually, I don't want to make a sweeping statement, but most of my bad experiences with photographers have been male photographers. I don't want, like, it is just what it is in my experience. I'm only speaking for myself here. And he was taking like photos of me in a bikini, and I think it just happens sometimes, boob fell out or something like that. And I could hear him going nuts, and he's like, and this joke, like, he made it as a joke. And then it wasn't until I was driving home afterwards that I was like, that's weird. And he's like, ha ha ha, these will be for me later. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? So maybe a little tip there, guys. If you're feeling uncomfortable with someone or someone that feels a bit weird, go with someone to a shoot. It's like, that was just me out there, and I'm just like, what the hell? We wrapped up pretty quick after that, and it wasn't until, it's weird, he said it, and I was like, that's strange. And it wasn't until I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's a bit of a creep. Yeah. Little titty shots at home.
I've definitely worked with people like that too.
Yeah.
Like when I was first starting out, you just think like, if I say no to this, then I'm missing out,
Yes.
right? And I had no one to guide me. I had no fucking idea what I was doing. I was just like, okay. And so, yeah, same thing, like doing shoots. And there's shoots that I did when I was like, 25 that I wouldn't want those images out there now. Like I don't do any lingerie or anything like that now. I don't even put that on my socials. It's like I didn't have anything in writing, like I didn't have any sort of, so they could be anywhere. I don't know, but honestly, just like only do stuff that you're comfortable with, and then if your mind changes, make sure that you've got it in
back to the contract.
Back to the contract. Get
12
it in writing,
months
girl.
Get it in writing.
Yeah, so what would be your advice to like new models if they get put in a situation like that? Like, how would you navigate it in that moment?
I think if you were by yourself, 100% just be like, hey, I think we're done here, like leave. But I think the point is to not get yourself in that situation in the first place. So make sure you're researching who this photographer is, who they are, what their work is, are they reputable? Take someone with you, especially if it's your first, couple of shoots. Make sure someone's going with you. Always put a time limit on it. Say, okay, we're only shooting for an hour, or we're only shooting for, an hour and a half. And I think I would never sort of advise anyone does lingerie or implied nudity with someone they've never worked with before.
Yeah,
good and if that's all they do for their work, maybe, say, oh, can I come along to a shoot with someone that you're working with if they're comfortable, so you can watch and see how they engage and interact with that person, and you can make connections from that. If it's a really positive experience and you've met, a couple of people, and if it's not, then not to go there. Saved
yourself the headache.
100%.
Yeah, and I think like a big warning sign is if you say, oh, can I bring a friend or something, and they say no, that's like a massive issue. I've been on sets where I've actually like called out the photographer. I would do a lot of brand new models that were coming into like the different agencies, and they were, you know, getting booked to do their test shoots, doing their headshots. So I was getting booked to do their makeup. And so many of them were like 16 or under. Yeah. And there was one photographer, and he would start shooting the normal headshots, do all of that, and he would slowly try to get them to do like some implied nudity and all of that. And I remember one time being like, she's not even 16 years old. Like, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, I didn't realize. I'm like, it says it on our sheet, the ages of the models and all of that. And she was talking about her sweet 16 birthday party and the plans that she was doing. So he knew. If you do have like a kid that wants to get into modeling, make sure someone is always there with them, especially like the photographers where they slowly ease them into it, where they're like, oh, well, just unbutton your top.
It's that false sense of safety and security, right? It's like, okay, we've built this rapport now. It's like, all right, we're going to start taking it to the next level. And like, we need to stop giving these people a platform, and we need to stop employing them. You know, agencies need to be, you know, accountable for that too. If they're using those photographers to, you know, facilitate those shoots with their new models, that's on them as well. And they need to be aware of those things. And I think if you're someone that sees that, whatever you're doing, whether you're a makeup artist or whether you're an assistant or whatever, you need to speak up. And, you know, if they continue to work with that person, then honestly don't work with them. It's like, you know, we can't be doing that.
Modelling, what a time!
Woo! All right, who wants to model? Sign up.
Mind you,
Send me an email.
Like, your shows are fun. Like, your shows, you can tell there is a lot of energy in your shows. Like, you guys do a great job in, for one, representing the people, for two, having a bloody good time. Yeah. Like, you know, it isn't all doom and gloom. And I guess in all of this, there is that amazing energy when you're in fashion. Like, it's so fun. And even though in this episode we have spoken a little bit about that dark underbelly of it all, but there is so much fun stuff. That's why we all did it, you know. That's why I did it for 10 years. Yeah. And it's so fun. It's so creative. You meet so many cool people. Yeah. Once you get once you get going in industry, you can make some good money too. It's not necessarily, I mean, it is a bit of a starving craft while you're setting up, but once you've got, you know, a bit of experience and a bit of a reputation, you can keep that momentum going and make some cash monies.
So obviously, like, the body positive movement has had a massive impact on the industry. Do you see any sort of downsides to the body positive movement?
Like what we were saying before, brands do try and use it in a very tokenistic way. It's like, oh, it's Pride Month. All right, everyone in our campaigns is, you know, LGBTQI. And then it's like, oh, and then we're going to stop that. Pride Month is over. And then what's next? You know, it's like, I think brands using it in a tokenistic way has been really toxic from what I've seen. But when it's done properly and it's done right, it's magical and it's amazing. And like, it does bring the life and the realism back to fashion and modelling in the industry. And that's what we try and do with the shows as well. It's like, I was going to runway shows and they were just so, you know, clinical and very like, you know, stiff. And with Reborn, it's like, no, like this runway, anyone could get up and be on this runway, and, you know, the energy and that sort of thing. So I think, when it's done properly, it's really positive, but when it's not, it's negative, and it can sort of take things 10 steps backwards.
I remember at this point, like, I had one of those like light bulb moments. I was on set and I was talking to this model, and she is quite a famous model, and she was a plus size model. And at the time, it was like she was getting a lot of press because what she was doing was really groundbreaking in Australia. And she had just secured this massive swimwear campaign with this huge Australian brand, and they've never used a plus-size model before. I remember saying to her, I'm like, oh, well, it must be so good now you don't have to worry about your weight. And she's like, no, I still do. The plus-size model still has to have a flat tummy.
Yes.
They want me to be hourglass, like I have to be an hourglass shape. That's what's acceptable. They don't want a genuine plus size person. They want a plus size model, and I still have to keep my tummy flat, but I still need to be curvy.
It's even harder. That's so much harder than
I just remember being like, oh, I've never considered that because I was just like, oh, well, you get to eat what you want. You don't have to worry. And she's like, no, like I still have the exact same pressures I did before because now I have to be a particular shape.
Yeah.
And so she was also doing a lot of modeling in America. And she said, even though like the money over there is really great, she'd get lots of campaigns, lots of really good paid jobs, she wasn't considered to be big enough over there. And her agency over there kept telling her to put weight on and they wanted her to get her boobs done so that way she would have more of a voluptuous figure. So that way, like, you know, her boobs would be curvy, her waist would be skinny and her butt would be big. And that's what they were looking for. And that she was feeling this pressure to then eat and not be healthy, to then put weight on to make that market happy because she was still a little bit technically too small for the plus size over there. But then in Australia, it's like she was like, if she put weight on, then she would stop getting jobs. And she said it was really hard to balance that between they want flat tummy, but they want her bigger and all of these things that just it never clicked with me before she said all of that there's still this incredible pressure and it's not just this easy thing and you can just be whatever size you want to be and like all of that. There's still these really high expectations on a plus size model. The exact same that is on a standard like size model.
Yeah. It's like, when is it good enough? When am I good enough?
When is this okay?
And like we saw like last year, Levi's started trialing AI generated models because they wanted to promote.
Glad you brought this up.
Yeah, I've been like dying to talk about it because, you know, they did it to promote diversity and inclusivity, but there's like real people out there, but because they wanted to showcase a particular type and they could literally generate their ideal curvy body or their ideal, you know, whatever, they're using computer generated images. So
crazy. I think it's interesting. So I work in marketing and tech. The impact AI, you know, we're just getting through, clawing our way through body positivity in the industry. But I think AI could set us back because brands, again, like Levi's, that's not a small brand, will just go, fuck it. I don't want to deal with all y'all. I'll get a designer to just jump into Midjourney and create me a fake person.
Yep.
And that's good enough. It's almost like a Black Mirror episode because it's even, I think actors will feel the pinch as well because, you know, they no longer need extras. They can just AI people back there. What do you think will happen with industry or with AI coming in? What are your thoughts, feelings, emotions?
It's such a grey area and the legislation around it, it's moving faster than we can actually legally keep up with it. You know, we saw stuff that happened with Taylor Swift and the images.
Fake.
Like crazy. And I think it's hard to navigate that and even it's hard to monitor. Like we don't know what's happening out there. So I think until we sort of get a grasp on it and we can really, you know, utilize it in a way that's positive rather than for, you know, evil, I suppose, it's like, how do we even...
Yeah.
Because it can be really positive. It totally can. Imagine like going online and you'd be able to put your body on a website online and, you know, try different clothes on.
Yes.
Like, that would be amazing.
That's freaking awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
But then we use it for the other things where we're creating our own sort of people because they're the ideal look that we want.
Yeah, right.
It is, it's pretty heckers.
I think we're going to end up very much, I don't know, like there's a Black Mirror episode out there where they were using people's likenesses for things. And I think we're very much going to have in the future, you're going to have to copyright how you look.
For sure.
Like that, your brand, your personal brand will have to have some sort of, as you grow, you know, as a professional, have some sort of copyright around it because then, you know, you don't have McDonald's picking up and deciding they want to, or any brand picking up and deciding they want to use you in their next campaign.
Because that's what AI is. It just collects all the data and brings it together and just spits something out. And, you know, so if you've got stuff online or you've got images online, it's pulling from those images to create this sort of ideal person. So, like, how do we copyright that? How do we sort of secure that so that it's not protect it so it's not being used for all of that kind of stuff?
Did you hear about that? Sheri, Taylor Swift had someone did some porn with like an AI generator.
Yeah, I've heard that's happened to a few celebrities now.
And it's so I don't think I could watch it if it was me. I'd be curious, but also I'm like, how do I go? But it's so realistic that you'd be like, oh, this is awful.
And once it's out there, it will forever remain in people's heads. Even if they find out that it was fake, it's still it's still there.
Yep. Doesn't really matter whether it's real or not.
Let's get into one of the stories. Am I the asshole for telling my friend she's too basic to be a model?
Started fucking awful, but go.
Okay, so some backstory. I've been modeling with an agency since I was 16. In model standards, my career is successful. I am now 21, female, and I'm taking a break to focus on school. I've known my friend, 21 female. She's 5'5", mid-size, and looks pretty average, like a normal person. This is important for later. For a few months now, this topic of modelling has been coming up. It came up that I used to model full-time and I've recently slowed down for school. She asked me which agency I was with and I told her the name. And she told me that she wanted to join that agency and do high fashion work and how lucky I was. I shrugged and told her good for her, but she noticed something was up and asked why I was acting like that. I told her it was nothing, but she kept pushing me until I eventually told her that modelling isn't just fun and games. I told her the truth about the industry and how toxic it can be, and how on the outside it looks like it's changed, but it hasn't. How I've been harassed by agents for my hip measurements being 35.7 instead of 35, constantly being rejected for things out of my control. I also told her about the pay and how it isn't a huge paycheck right after, but very random, and you might get it a few months down the track, and I've had to stretch my paychecks or get advances from other jobs when I was waiting to be paid. When I told her that there were cover shows I've done where was paid in exposure, she didn't believe me and called me a liar. She then goes on about Lily Rose Depp, Kendall Jenner, and how they get paid millions for their work. I told her that firstly, they are nepo babies, and secondly, they are the top 1% in the industry, and it can take the most amazing model years to get there, even if she's lucky. She kept saying that isn't true, and those girls aren't good models, and how once she gets there, she'll make it to that level. This is where I snapped, and I told her that she's not even tall or unique enough for runway work. She once again brought up the fact that Lily Rose Depp and how she walked for Chanel multiple times even though she's short. I once again told her to remember who her parents are and how she is connected. She then said the industry isn't like that anymore. This is where I went off and said the industry hasn't changed like that, that there is still a market for petite size to mid girls, and she isn't big enough for plus size, but she also isn't small enough to fit into the petite. I mentioned how I made such a fuss about the 35.7 instead of the 35 difference on my hips, and she didn't even care about that. She has no connections to help her to get on the runway. She's just a normal person, and maybe the best that she could get would be some commercial work. After this, she called me jealous and stormed off saying I was a hater. Since then, she hasn't talked to me. This is where I feel like I am the asshole for being so harsh and telling her that she failed and she wouldn't be successful, maybe only in commercial work. I asked my other friends and they said that I was in the wrong for saying that all of those things.
Brutal.
Wowee.
She was so brutal. Look, she wasn't wrong with some of the things she was saying, but it's still your friend. And it's like anything, like when you're really excited and getting into something and the world is your oyster and then your friends come and bloody pissed in your cornflakes. God.
This girl that is saying this, though, she's obviously experienced those things. That's why she's saying it. And there are corners of the industry, and you know, they're quite big, that still do operate in that way, you know, and agencies do nitpick and this sort of thing. And you know, I feel like there's a place for this girl who wants to be in the industry, but obviously her friend hasn't had that experience. So some of the things she's saying are totally correct.
I feel like it is good to warn her, but then if she still wants to do it, let her do it. It's
Don't just project your trauma onto someone.
Yeah, I feel like that was very much it. She's experienced quite a bit of trauma doing modelling because she was doing it since she was 16. And I think it's probably hit too close to home. And I think too the fact that her friend was just like, oh, it's so fine. Like, you can just be a big model. Like, it's so easy when it is very not easy.
Someone who's worked so hard, you know, from 16 years old up until
yeah,
now.
to have your friend just be like, I'm going to do it now too.
It's so easy. It's like, it's really not. It's
and
really
then
not.
like her examples are two Nepo babies, which there is a reason why they make so much money, and it's because they're famous, not because they are the best models and they deserve to be making that money. And I think that's probably what was triggering her.
For sure.
There's a way that you can say it in a nicer way instead of telling her that she's not the right fit, but without having to like really go in for the kill.
You can speak on things from experience without like knocking someone else's dream about, you know, like she was like, oh, it's over for me then. You know? It's like, fuck.
She was voted not the asshole.
Oh, really? I was about to say, what did the internet say?
She was voted not the asshole, but people did say you were a little harsh. It's clear you know the ins and the outs, and, you know, she has rose-coloured glasses on. Yeah. And that you were probably just trying to give her a bit of a reality check, but it's not your decision to make. It's her decision to make. I feel like that's quite like a fair representation about that. Am I the asshole for not letting my child model? I'm writing on behalf of both me and my husband since we both agree on this, but I have a sister on my neck about it. When I was a teen, I used to model. I got signed to an agency in New York and I started getting jobs. I got to do a number of sessions of Fashion Week and got medium-sized campaigns before I decided to quit and move on to something different. I quit because even though I was very thin and quite sickly, my agency always pushed me to be smaller. When I didn't get to walk in Milan and Paris because I was slightly too big, they told me how much weight I needed to lose and would only congratulate me or push me for campaigns when I was starving myself and only drinking water and smoking cigarettes. I did get better. I went to college and now I have a job that isn't glamorous, but I get to eat whatever I want. I exercise and feel strong, and I got married and now have a daughter that will be turning 10 next July. The main issue is my sister. She also modelled a little bit, but her career never took off, so she seems a little bit bitter about it and says that I wasted my opportunity of a lifetime because I wouldn't commit to just being thin. My daughter is very pretty, and that's just not my motherly gaze. Several people have pointed out how beautiful she is and that she should get into modelling. It is such the case that a few months ago we got approached by an agent telling us that he wanted to represent her for some commercial child casting work and advertised that he could get her quite a lot of work. I am white and my husband is Latino, so she is mixed and she does have quite a unique look. My husband and I don't think it's a good idea to get our child into this world so early in life, as she is only 10 and it's such an impressionable age. I don't want her to develop self-esteem issues or possibly an eating disorder like I did. And because this agent is telling her that she needs to be thinner and prettier. My daughter seems indifferent about it, and when I asked her if she wanted to do it, she just shrugged and went on and played in the backyard. She's very tomboyish kind of child, and she loves to play soccer and be outdoors and active, and she isn't really interested in having makeup done or pictures taken. My sister thinks I should make her do it because apparently this is a second chance at a successful modelling career and it would look good on my daughter's resume and we shouldn't waste her looks. I've had a bad experience with the industry and I explained this to her and to my parents about the whole ordeal and why I don't want my child doing this. And I don't want to take any chances with my child's mental health. We think she could do it, but maybe when she's older, around 16 or 17, if she wants to. But 10 is too young. But my sister keeps pushing me, telling me that I am stopping her from being successful and that I should contact the agent and lock it down before he finds someone else. Am I really an asshole for not doing this?
This is like an episode of Dance Moms where they're just like vicariously living through their, or Toddlers and Tiaras, where they're just vicariously living through their children. The sister's got some like unfinished business, clearly, and she's like, push her. The kid doesn't care. The kid just wants to be a kid. Like, just let her go.
Yeah, like, live, laugh, love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if the kid's showing like literally no interest, there's your answer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And as a parent, it's your first job to like protect them and put their interests first, not your desires of what you could have been.
Yep.
No, I think the mum and the dad are completely in the right for not doing this and have like a good understanding of the industry and how it can affect you if you're not in the right headspace or if you go into it quite young. But yeah, I think the auntie is the arsehole and she's just very much vicariously trying to live for this child.
Just go to therapy. Go do that.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. Do you have any memorable moments of your time in the industry that you're open to talking about?
Good ones or bad ones?
Either.
Okay. I think sort of like the turning point for me was very early on, and I was backstage at a runway show, and I tell everyone this story because it was just like literal pivotal light bulb moment for me. Backstage at a runway show, and it was probably like maybe my third show. I was still like didn't really have a clue, and I really felt like I didn't belong there. Like I was literally the only model over a size 14 that was there. And I was walking for this particular designer, and anyone who's ever been backstage knows that it's crazy and full on and super fast paced, and you've just got to like get it going. Everyone just gets undressed, like it's sort of what happens. And like it, you know, if you create a safe environment, that's fine, but if not, it can sort of go the other way. And I had run backstage to get ready for the next designer, and I sort of just like started stripping off, and two assistants came and like ushered me away like into sort of a corner and held like a sheet up and were like, oh, you can get changed behind here. And I was like, oh no, like I'm okay. Like I'm actually just like focusing on I fucking got to walk for the next designer. I was like, I'm good. I'm confident. I'm happy. I'm good. And it was like they thought or they assumed that I felt uncomfortable because of my size getting changed in front of these people. And that's when I was like, what is going on? It sort of just really changed my perspective on things. I'd had a few little like things here and there to be like literally ushered into a corner and be like, you can get changed behind this. I'm like, I'm good. Like, take the fucking you're in my way. Take the shit away, please.
Away.
I'm trying to
do
hustle
my
here,
thing.
girl. Like,
I have a job to do.
I have a job to do. I was so focused, and like the adrenaline is like running through you, and you don't. I didn't even know what was going on. I was just like in a haze, you know. And it wasn't until after I was like, shit, that was really bad. Like, I feel horrible for that. What did they think that I thought about myself? Like, I'm here. I've cast. I've done all these things to be here. I deserve to be here just as much as everyone else. And like, I'm good getting changed here. Like, the environment was pretty safe. You know, I was okay. Like, so it's like,
don't
decide on my behalf. 100%.
You've created a narrative in your head about what is I should be comfortable with, and it's not true. Just let me do my thing and let me be a trailblazer, because you being confident in that space means another model might come in and feel more confident in that space because, you know, you've put the flag on the mountain and said, hey, this is cool, this is safe. Okay, Sheri, have you got one last little story for us?
Yeah, so we'll finish off on one last Am I the Arsehole? Am I the arsehole for publicly shaming my ex-girlfriend who was an aspiring Instagram model? I have a 17-year-old daughter and I'm not her bio dad, but I've been in her life since she was 4, and I married her mum. We divorced when she was 13, and unfortunately her mother has had some mental health issues she refused to treat, so I took on full-time custody. Recently, I started dating a woman who was probably too young for me, 25, and she was an Instagram model, though not very successful. My daughter did a little childhood modeling and has had a lot of success on Instagram. There were times I felt like my girlfriend was using my daughter for Instagram likes and seemed super jealous of her. Besides that they got along all right, I broke up with my girlfriend 2 months ago after the stupidest fight. My daughter said something about college, and my girlfriend wanted to know if I was still going to pay for her college despite all of the money she's made from her Instagram modeling. Technically, she's made enough to pay for her own college, but I do intend to pay for her education as I'm her dad, and she can use that money for her future. This upset my girlfriend for some reason, and she was whining about how no one paid for her school, and she has so much debt, and she needs her Instagram career to take off to pay her debt. My daughter said that maybe you should get a day job, which maybe was a little bit bitchy, but she's not wrong. And my girlfriend said maybe you should get some real parents. I just saw red. I kicked her out that night and that was the end of our relationship. Well, today I saw a picture she posted on Instagram of the three of us as a throwback Thursday, and I felt like she's just using my daughter to get some attention. So I commented that I would like all the pictures of my daughter taken down or I will report her account. And I will also include what she said. I guess she got some hate because she left me a voicemail crying.
Nah.
Here we go.
What? I don't think he's the asshole. If anything, he's just a dad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like just a dad trying to look after his daughter and give her a good start in life. And how amazing in a world full of, like, I don't know if you saw what happened to Honey Boo Boo, how the mum went and spent all the money that they'd made over all those years. In a world where that's happening, there's someone that's like, you know what, you made that money, let's put it towards a car, set yourself up. I'm still going to, I had the commitment to pay for your college, which lovely, amazing. What a king. This other girl seems just horrible.
Made the right decision not wanting to date her.
I actually got beef with like a teenager.
Child,
Girl, please. There's more to life than this.
Yeah. I think, it's definitely jealousy has risen its head there because she's probably looking at his daughter being like, oh, well, she can do it. Why can't I do it? Yeah, she's getting quite jealous of the whole situation. But the dad's done the right thing. And you're a parent. Of course you're going to pay for your kid's education if that's what you've agreed upon, because no kid should have to work to pay for their education. Yeah. And he's got the right sort of take about that. But his girlfriend clearly has not.
What do the people say? Surely not the asshole.
I was prepared and even keen on thrashing you, but holy shit, who says something like that to a child and who acts like that because you're not her biological father? You are her father. Yeah, and then someone wrote, kind of off topic, but I also hope you learned your lesson. While I'm down for kinky stuff and free love and having romantic relationships with a huge age gap, no idea how old you are, but I'm assuming based off the idea that you mentioned that she was 25, that the age gap is quite big, is probably showing you why that relationship was doomed to fail. She is only 25. Like, her brain has just started to fully develop.
Jeez, Dad.
But yeah, I thought that was a good one to sort of finish off, a nice lighter one. Yeah, I like that story.
Yeah. Krissy, thanks for joining us. We might have you back to talk property. For people looking for you, we'll put all your socials in here. What's next for you? I know you're having a bit of a gap year, but, if people want to reach out or want to learn more about you, where can they find you and what are you getting up to?
Yeah, myself and a couple of the girls are going to Fashion Week next month.
Stunning.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's sort of like our annual little trip. So that'll be really fun. So I take a couple of the models with me. We just fully immerse ourselves in all things fashion, connect with people. That's the beauty of it, right?
Yep.
So, come and see us if you see us there. Yes. Otherwise, please slide into my DMs. They're always open. I love a cheeky DM. And, I'm happy to help anyone any way I can.
Well, thank you guys for listening. And like always, you can find us across every single social media platform under Wild Yarns. So definitely give us a follow there. We also do a lot of posts where we ask for your stories. So definitely send them on in, as we love to hear from you. And we are picking a new topic every single week. But that's all for now. And I hope you enjoyed this episode.